Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Sriwer, Boiler Room Office Space. Let's jump right in. This happened in former Yugoslavia in the 80s. It was still a communist country, but by then they started allowing for some privately owned companies limited in size. My brother was working for one such company, which made high-end custom AC systems, and that's how I know about this story. As this was a novel concept at the time, office space was almost non-existent. You had this huge state-owned company who had their own buildings with everything they needed, including office space, and outside of that, there was never need and nothing was built with that in mind, so you really needed to think outside the box for this one. And that brings us neatly to the second peculiarity of life in former Yugoslavia, apartment buildings. To keep this short, at some point before, a whole bunch of them were made, basically a whole new part of the city, and all of them had this huge space in the ground floor, first floor, that was planned to be a boiler room, which was later abandoned in favor of one big heating plant to which all the buildings in that area were connected to. As you can see where this is going, the owner of the fledgling company approached the apartment building representatives and asked them to rent the space intended for non-existent heating systems. Now, these guys in this particular building were retired military officers, so a little bit arrogant and not big on asking questions. They had no idea what was going on, other than some guy was willing to give them money to rent part of the building that was never used. Not much money, but basically free money for them. So they signed a standard renting contract, which is very important for later. Owner converted the boiler room to 2-floor office with all facilities, and that was that for a while. One point about this guy, he didn't like to rent, so after a while, when businesses started to pick up, he started building a new factory that included much needed office space. When this was finished and he was ready to move, he again approached apartment building representatives with a proposal to pay him some of the costs of remodeling. They could now rent for way higher prices, as office space was by then in high demand. And for what he was asking, they would be in the clear in less than a year, and after that, profit. But as I said, former military officers, a bit arrogant, used to getting their way, they thought about it and said, no, you are moving out, and we are going to get that anyways and for free. Owner said, okay, no problem. Gathered around all of his employees and said, anything you need from former office, feel free to take. Electric plugs, toilet bowls, doors, anything that could be dismantled could be taken. After that, he brought a small excavator, drove it in, and started tearing the place clean. By then, building representatives are running and screaming bloody murder, threatening to call police, militia then, legal actions, everything and anything. Owner calmly takes out the standard renting contract, with highlighted premises to be returned to the original state after renting period. Now, there is something poetic about a bunch of entitled, arrogant bastards being screwed and knowing they can't do anything about it. My brother says it was glorious. I wish I was there to see it. Also, I'm happy to say that company managed to survive the Balkan Wars of the 90s and is still going strong to this day. Do you think the arrogant owner boiled over when they realized the renters were smarter than them? Do you think they had steam coming out of their ears? It sounds like the situation got a little heated, but in the end, nobody had a meltdown and the renters came out on top. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Dr. Amazing. You're sure you want that many pennies? Let's jump right in. Years and years ago, I worked as a bank teller. 90% of my job was just cashing checks and being a living ATM. One day, this guy comes in and says he needs a lot of pennies. This was back when pennies were still in use. See, he's doing the classic pay for something with an inconvenient amount of loose change bit, and he needs a ridiculous amount of pennies. He's super excited to explain how this local business screwed him over. I won't bore you with the details, but it's pretty clear even in his telling that it was perfectly fair he was being charged this money. He's practically giggling as he explains how inconvenient it will be for the people he's paying. But here's the thing, maybe this works down in the States, but in Canada, there is a very reasonable limit on how much you can pay with change. The payee is allowed to reject any loose change payment over a certain amount. Thinking I might be able to save everyone involved a bunch of hassle, myself included, I explained this to my customer. The guy isn't having it. Just keeps saying pennies are money, so he's allowed to do it, and I better give him his pennies. At this point, I figure it's not really my problem what he wants to do with his money, and I get to work. He wants a few $100s in pennies. That might not sound like a lot, but it's like 300 pounds. It's so many pennies that I have to tell him we don't actually have enough on hand. We have to make a special order for him. There's a small fee, but he doesn't care. A few days later, he happily loads up boxes and boxes of pennies and leaves. A week later, he's back. Only now, he's dragging in a hockey bag of loose pennies. I guess he spent some time opening all the rolls just to make it harder. As expected, the business owner simply refused to accept the payment. So he'd like to deposit this bag of pennies back in his account, and he'll bring the rest in later. Had to tell him we only took rolled coins, and he'd have to do that first. I'm not sure when Coinstar came out, but my small town definitely didn't have one. I missed his return, but I heard he eventually came back after going through the trouble of re-rolling all his money. A lot of trouble to get it right back to where he started. If only he had listened. Ah yes, he was blinded by the thought of malicious revenge, and he was rewarded with instant karma. Okay, let's do some calculations here. So 1 penny weighs about 2.35 grams, therefore 300 pounds is $579 Canadian. Now, I'm Canadian and I've heard that there's restrictions on how many coins you can use to pay for something, but I didn't know what that restriction was, so I looked it up. It turns out it's only 25 cents if the denomination is 1 cent. It's $5 if the denomination is 5 cents. It's $10 if the denomination is 10 cents or greater but less than $1. And it's $25 if the denomination is $1. And finally, because we have $2 coins here, it's $40 if the denomination is $2 or greater but does not exceed $10. So now you know, and knowing's half the battle. This next story comes to us from Fatal Deadlock. Extended warranty claim requires repair estimate. Let's jump right in. I used my credit card and bought an electric skateboard in fall of 2018 for $279 on Amazon. Not the best timing, but I was replacing a DIY unit that I built myself that was falling apart. Being in the Midwest United States, I got only a few weeks use out of it before the weather was too poor to ride it. Spring came along and for whatever reason, the battery would not charge. The skateboard only had a 3-month manufacturer warranty, and it spent most of that warranty period sitting in the closet due to miserable Midwest winter weather. Manufacturer warranty has now expired. It has been 5 months since purchase. But wait, my credit card has a feature where they will double the factory warranty on any product purchased with the card. Skateboard is only 5 months old, still within the credit card's 6 months extended warranty coverage. Sweet, let's file a claim. Claim is filed. I am fully expecting them to just replace the skateboard. I get a response. They require a repair estimate before they will process the claim. Okay, fine, let's do this. I reached out to the manufacturer. I had already opened up the skateboard and taken multiple voltage measurements, so their tech support quickly moved beyond, "Are you sure it's plugged in correctly?" and "What lights do you see?" They tell me it could be one of two things. It could be the battery or the circuit board that needs to be replaced. They give me a price for each. But that's not a repair estimate, that's a parts list. I had used many appliance repair companies and plumbers, and most of the time their invoice or repair estimate is just a generic piece of paper with their name, the word repair, and a price. Super lazy. And yet, that is good enough to get reimbursed for home warranty claims. I figure that I could write a repair estimate, and I am certainly qualified to repair this. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. If I am going to do the repair, I should be compensated for my work. So I wrote an itemized estimate for myself to do the repair. It went as follows: such and such electronic repair, my home address, my cell phone number, made up invoice number, today's date, replacement battery $79, replacement circuit board $69, labor, remove damaged components, install new $50, diagnostic fee $25, tax $12.27, total $235.27. Quote valid for 30 days, estimate only. Well, $235.27 is less than $279. So the extended warranty company approved the invoice without hesitation. I complied with the repair estimate required and got paid $87.27 to fix my own skateboard. And now I have a working electric skateboard that has given zero problems since my repair. The interesting thing to me here was that there was just a 3-month warranty on this from the factory. Here in Canada, most things that you get come with a manufacturer 1-year warranty. I believe in Europe it's 2 years, and in some places it's being extended to 3 years, which is pretty crazy. Great work, OP, on getting paid to do that repair yourself though. That was awesome. This next story comes to us from Celestine Noxa. Want me to vacuum your hand? Okay, let's jump right in. This happened when I was a kid, maybe 11 or 12 years old. We had a black lab puppy named Ralph. At first, we kept him inside, but once he got bigger and more destructive, they ended up putting him outside to be an outside dog. This is the country in the south, so while it's not the safest for pets, it's not unusual in this area. One day, while he was still an inside puppy, Ralph got a hold of some kind of paper, I forget what kind, but something like paper towels or toilet paper. Whatever it was, he shredded it all over the living room carpet. My stepdad was pretty angry about it, but puppy gonna puppy, right? Since technically Ralph was my puppy, he was a gift to me for Christmas, but they named him and he was really their dog, my stepdad insisted I vacuum up the shredded paper. This is a story for another subreddit, but let's just say my whole family is cursed when it comes to vacuum cleaners. I take out the vacuum, plug it in, turn it on, and start running it over the shredded paper. It's definitely on, but I can tell after just a few swipes that it's not picking up anything. I turn it off and tell my stepdad, who grumbles and tells me to turn it back on and try again while he watches. I do. It's still not picking anything up. He tells me to tilt it back so he can see what the mechanism is doing while it's on. I do. That apparently isn't enough. The next thing my stepdad does is place his hand flat on the carpet and he tells me, a 12-year-old, to run the vacuum over his hand so he can feel whether it's sucking or not. I'm 12, but I'm pretty sure this is a bad idea. Are you sure? Yeah, go on. I'm still sure this is a bad idea, but I'm 12 and he's my stepdad and he's a jerk most of the time anyway. So I mentally shrug and proceed to do what he told me to do. Immediately he shouts and pulls back, and I can already see there's blood on his hand. He's cursing and holding his hand, and obviously in a lot of pain. 3 of his fingers start swelling and turning purple almost instantly, and he's bleeding from at least 2 of them. He ends up losing 2 of the fingernails. Later, my mom came home from work and I ran outside to tell her the story first, to make sure she knew it was not my fault. To his credit, this was one of the very rare times my stepdad admitted it was his own fault, and I was just doing what he told me to. He was more than a jerk, he was abusive in basically every way it's possible to be abusive, so losing 2 fingernails painfully is the least of what he deserved. I'm guessing Dad didn't use the vacuum very often because if he did, he would have known that there was a beater bar underneath that vacuum, and that regardless of whether the vacuum was sucking or not, that beater bar would be spinning very quickly, and that's not made to stick human flesh into. This next story comes to us from Kothor. Sproing goes the shocks. Let's jump right in. So once upon a year, I used to work for a large hardware chain that had aprons that beautifully matched my pumpkin-esque figure. I worked in a busy flooring department and could share many a story, but the most delightful came from people overestimating the abilities of their vehicles. Pros would come in with appropriate vehicles and expectations, while DIYers would occasionally come in with a disdain for aproned associates. Our location had seen enough such DIYers come through that we had a cover your butt form we developed. Well, one fine day, a man comes in a rush and demanded the promptest of service, was annoyed at any and all project advice, and took offense when we'd offered delivery service. He'd chosen a nice slate tile and wanted a pallet for his house. We did up the sale and brought the pallet to the drive-up area. He pulled up in his new Ford F-150. No reinforced trailer, just the truck. That truck can carry roughly 2,000 pounds, give or take. The pallet was about 3,800 pounds. I told him that we would need to break open the pallet, he could take half right away, and the other half later. The man went ballistic. They could hear him back in lighting. After some back and forth, and a few other managers coming by and strongly advising him that his truck could not take the pallet, he was screaming and foaming at the mouth. I shrugged, grabbed the form, discussed the portion saying he was ignoring our advice and he absolves our company and its employees of any responsibility for the outcomes. He signs it, settles down, and our forklift starts to bring the pallet down on this poor truck. Once the shocks had bottomed out, I called for the forklift operator to stop, showed the guy, the operator confirmed only half of the load weight had been transferred, and we gave him a final chance to reconsider. No such luck. I indicated for the forklift driver to continue, and there was no immediate catastrophic failure. The customer thinks we're all morons, while nearly everyone in the store, including many a chuckling pro customer, is hanging out at the doors watching. The guy gets in his truck, calling out a thanks to us expletive morons, then drives a whole 6 feet before blam, shocks blew, and his rear axle bent in a bit. He came out screaming at us, while I held the paper and pointed up at the security camera that looked over the area. He declined my offer to call a tow truck. OP, what you've learned and what a lot of people learn in retail is that ignorance can be educated, crazy can be medicated, but there's just no cure for stupid. Check out all 5 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.